At my sister's graduation dinner, there wasn't even a seat for me. My mom smirked and said, "You didn't go to college, you don't belong at this table." I stayed quiet until the $2,800 bill showed up and the waiter came straight to me, saying my family told him I was paying. I just smiled, stood up, and said, "Not my family. Not my bill." Then I walked. You know those moments in life that just got you? That hit you so hard you feel like the air's been knocked out of your lungs? For me, that moment wasn't some grand tragedy, but a quiet, insidious betrayal at the most extravagant, ridiculously expensive restaurant in Chicago. It was my own sister's graduation dinner, and I was about to discover just how little I truly mattered to my family. This place, Cristallo's, wasn't just fancy, it was practically a monument to wealth. Chandeliers that probably cost more than most people's homes, marble floors gleaming under soft, almost reverent lighting. My mother had been practically vibrating with pride, crowing about her country club connection that had bypassed a 6-month waiting list. It was for my sister, Madison. For years at Stanford, summa cum laude, and a consulting job at McKinsey lined up that would pay her more in her first year than I'd made in the last 3 combined. Her starting salary? Around $115,000. It sounded incredible until I did the math on my own life. 3 years into my electrician apprenticeship, I'd earned roughly $120,000 total. Her first year would practically equal my first 3. The comparison stung, sure, but what truly twisted the knife was how Mom made sure everyone, and I mean everyone, knew about it. I showed up in my absolute nicest dress, a navy blue number I'd saved 3 months to buy. The hostess led me through the opulent main dining room, past hushed conversations and clinking crystal, to the private dining room they'd reserved. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked downtown Chicago, the setting sun painting the sky in postcard-perfect shades of orange and pink. My family was already seated at an elegant table that stretched across the room, perfectly arranged. And that's when my stomach dropped. 8 chairs. All occupied. Mom sat at the head in a cream Chanel suit, her hair a perfect wave that cost more than my weekly groceries. Dad, beside her, was doing his usual Rolex check, as if he had somewhere vastly more important to be. And there was Madison, right in the center, like a princess at her own coronation, wearing white as if she were marrying her diploma. Her boyfriend Trevor, my Aunt Diane, Uncle Paul, my grandparents, every single seat was taken. "Oh, honey," Mom said, spotting me hovering in the doorway. Her voice. It had that false sweetness she usually reserved for describing her friends' ugly babies. "We didn't realize you were actually coming." My jaw must have dropped. "You invited me," I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "You sent me the time and address 3 weeks ago." "Well, yes, but," she waved her hand vaguely, the diamonds on her wrist glinting under the soft lights. "We didn't think you'd actually show up. You're always so busy with your little job and all." My little job. I was an apprentice electrician, 3 years into a 4-year program. I woke up at 5 a.m., worked with my hands until my muscles screamed, and then studied code regulations at night. And I was good at it, damn good. My supervisor kept saying I had a natural aptitude for troubleshooting complex systems. The pay was decent, around $42,000 a year, and it would jump significantly once I got my license. But to my mother, if it didn't come with a degree from a school that rejected 90% of its applicants, it wasn't worth mentioning at dinner parties. "There's no seat," I stated, the obvious hanging in the air like a bad smell. Madison finally looked up from her phone, barely acknowledging my existence. "Can't you just ask them to bring another chair or something?" "The table's full, sweetie," Aunt Diane chimed in, her tone suggesting I was the one being difficult just by existing. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. "Wilma, you didn't go to college. This dinner is for celebrating Madison's academic achievement. You don't really belong at this table." The words hit me like a physical blow. A punch to the gut. The room seemed to tilt, or maybe that was just my entire world reshaping itself in that precise moment. My grandmother, bless her heart, at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, shifting in her seat and studying her water glass like it held the secrets of the universe. I could stand, I offered, hating how small my voice sounded. Don't be ridiculous, Mom snapped. That would look absurd. Why don't you just grab dinner somewhere nearby? There's a Chipotle 2 blocks down. We'll catch up with you afterward. Trevor, Madison's boyfriend, a guy who'd never spoken more than 5 words to me, actually laughed. A short, sharp bark of amusement at the suggestion. Go eat fast food while they dined on whatever cost $40 an appetizer. I should have left then. Looking back, I can see it now. The smart move would have been to turn around, walk out with my dignity intact, and never speak to any of them again. But something kept my feet cemented to that ridiculously expensive floor. Some twisted hope, some desperate need for acknowledgement. I'll wait at the bar, I heard myself say. Mom's expression shifted to something almost like relief. Perfect. That's very mature of you, Wilma. We'll text you when we're done. I turned before anyone could see the tears threatening to spill over. The bar was back through the main dining room, a gorgeous setup with a backlit wall of top-shelf liquor and a bartender who looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine for attractive people with impeccable taste. What can I get you? He asked, his name tag reading James. Water, please. Just water. He raised an eyebrow, but poured me a glass with cucumber and mint, setting it on a cocktail napkin without judgment. And there I sat, perched on that stool, for the next 2.5 agonizing hours. I watched the sun disappear behind the buildings, the city lights blink on one by one. James tried to make conversation twice, but I couldn't muster the energy. My phone stayed dark. No texts, no updates, nothing to suggest my family remembered I was even there. Around 9:02 p.m., my phone finally buzzed. Mom's message was brief, running a bit long. You can head home if you want. Thanks for being understanding. 3 years ago, I would have cried. 2 years ago, I would have sent an angry response I'd immediately regret. 1 year ago, I would have just left and pretended everything was fine at the next obligatory family gathering. But tonight, something was different. Maybe it was the way that bartender kept glancing at me with pity in his eyes. Maybe it was seeing my reflection in the mirror behind the bar, this woman in her nice dress, perched alone on a stool, like she was waiting for her life to start. Maybe it was just that I'd finally had enough. I texted back, I'll wait. James poured me another water. Everything okay? Family stuff, I said, which was both completely accurate and entirely insufficient to explain the abyss I was feeling. Ah, he nodded, like that explained everything. Those can be complicated. Another 45 minutes passed. I watched couples come and go, celebrating anniversaries and promotions and whatever else people celebrated at places that required reservations made weeks in advance. They all looked happy. They all belonged exactly where they were. Finally, around 10 p.m., I saw movement. My family emerged from the private dining room, a cluster of flushed faces, laughing about something Madison had said. They were loosened by wine and expensive food and the satisfaction of belonging to something exclusive. They didn't see me at first. I watched them sweep past the bar, still talking and laughing, heading toward the exit. For a terrifying second, I thought they were actually going to leave without even checking if I was still there. Then Mom glanced toward the bar, did a double take, and her expression shifted to something between surprise and annoyance. She said something to the others, and the whole group pivoted in my direction. Wilma, you're still here? Mom's voice carried that edge of disapproval, suggesting I'd done something inappropriate by taking her at her word. I slid off the bar stool. You said to wait. Well, yes, but we assumed you'd be sensible about it. She looked at her watch, a Cartier that had been Dad's anniversary gift last year. It's getting late. Madison stumbled slightly, clearly tipsy from whatever expensive wine they'd been drinking. Oh, wow. You actually stayed. That's kind of pathetic, Wilma. Trevor steadied her with a hand on her elbow, smirking at me like I was a stray dog that had followed them home. We had the most amazing lobster. The chef came out and everything. Did you see him? Probably not from way over here at the bar. The sommelier was incredible, too, Aunt Diane added, not even looking at me as she checked her reflection in a compact mirror. He recommended this burgundy that paired perfectly with the beef course. You would have loved it, Patricia. It was divine. Divine, Mom agreed, still not quite meeting my eyes. Madison, darling, we should get the name of that wine for your wedding registry. Already did. Madison said, pulling out her phone. I took a picture of the bottle. It's like $400, but totally worth it, $400. For one bottle of wine. I did the math in my head. That was almost what I paid for groceries for an entire month, carefully planning meals, clipping coupons, buying generic brands. They'd probably gone through 2 or 3 bottles without even thinking about it. And the desserts were art. Uncle Paul chimed in, patting his stomach. Genuine art. They had this chocolate thing with gold leaf and raspberry coulis. I think I gained 5 pounds just looking at it. They were doing it deliberately. Every single one of them was describing the meal in excruciating detail, making sure I knew exactly what I'd missed while sitting alone at that bar. This wasn't accidental cruelty. This was intentional. And the atmosphere, Grandma said quietly, though there was something off about her tone. Although, I have to say, it would have been nicer with one more person at the table. Mom shot her a warning look. Mother, don't start. I'm not starting anything, Patricia. I'm simply stating that something felt incomplete about the evening. That's because you barely touched your food, Dad said, always ready to redirect when Mom was being challenged. Are you feeling all right? I'm feeling just fine, Grandma replied, her voice gaining strength. I'm feeling like maybe we should talk about what happened tonight. Nothing happened, Mom said quickly. Too quickly. We had a beautiful dinner celebrating Madison's accomplishments. That's all. Is it? Grandma's eyes found mine across the group. Wilma, did you enjoy your evening? The question hung there, dangerous and loaded. Everyone went silent, waiting to see if I'd make waves or play along with the fiction that everything was fine. It was interesting, I said carefully. Very educational. Madison snorted. Educational? That's rich coming from someone who what? I cut her off, surprising myself. Someone who chose a different path? Someone who works with their hands instead of sitting in a cubicle? What exactly were you going to say, Madison? Her eyes widened. I never pushed back. I was always the one who absorbed the hits, smoothed things over, pretended the casual cruelty didn't land. But something had shifted during those hours at the bar. Something had cracked open, and I couldn't seal it back up. Girls, please, Dad said in his mediator voice, the one he used when clients were getting heated in his law office. This is not the time or place for what? I pressed. For honesty? For acknowledging that I was invited to a dinner where there was no seat for me? There were space constraints, Mom said tightly. The table only held 8. That's not anyone's fault. You made the reservation, I interrupted. Weeks ago. You've eaten here before. You bragged about it. You knew exactly how many seats that table had. Before she could respond, a waiter I hadn't seen before approached our group. He was young, maybe 25, with a kind of nervous energy that suggested he was new too. Dealing with private dining rooms full of wealthy people. Excuse me, he said, holding a leather portfolio that I knew contained the bill. I need to settle the check before you leave. Mom smiled, her most gracious smile, the one she used on service workers she was about to disappoint. Of course. My daughter will be handling that. She gestured toward me. The waiter looked confused. Oh, I apologize. I was told the reservation was under Mrs. Patricia Hensley. It is, Mom confirmed. But Wilma here will be covering the bill. she insisted. Actually, it's her gift to her sister. Every word was a lie. I'd never offered, never been asked, never even been told what the total would be. But Mom delivered it with such confidence, such certainty, that the waiter's expression cleared. "Oh, wonderful." He stepped toward me, offering the portfolio. "Right this way, Mississippi. We can process payment at the bar." I took the portfolio on autopilot. My hands opened the leather cover before my brain could catch up with what was happening. $2,846.30. The number sat there in neat printed script, followed by an itemized list that read like a parody of wealth. Wagyu beef. Lobster tail. Multiple bottles of wine I couldn't pronounce. Desserts that cost more per plate than I typically spend on groceries for a week. "There's been a mistake," I said quietly. The waiter's smile faltered. "I'm sorry, Wilma," Mom's voice carried a warning tone. "Don't make a scene." Something in my chest tightened, then released. All those years of biting my tongue, of being the easy daughter, the one who didn't cause problems or demand attention. All those times I convinced myself that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for myself. What had it gotten me? A place at the bar while my family celebrated without me. A scene? I repeated, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "You want to talk about making a scene? You told an entire restaurant that I wasn't good enough to sit at your table. You made me wait for 3 hours like I was some kind of servant hoping for scraps. And now you're trying to stick me with a bill for a meal I didn't eat, at a party I wasn't invited to join." "That's not what happened," Dad said. But his voice lacked conviction. He knew exactly what had happened. They all did. "Then tell me, Dad, what did happen? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you all decided I wasn't worth including, but I was worth using as a credit card." Trevor laughed, that same sharp bark from earlier. "Jesus, you're really milking this victim thing, aren't you? Your mom explained the situation. The table was full. What did you want them to do? Kick someone out?" "I wanted them to count me when they made the reservation," I said, turning to face him directly. "I wanted my own mother to care enough to make sure her daughter had a seat. But apparently, that was too much to ask." "You're twisting everything," Madison said, her voice rising. "Mom worked so hard to make this dinner perfect. She called in favors to get this reservation. She spent weeks planning every detail, and you're trying to ruin it because you're jealous." "Jealous?" The word almost made me laugh. "Of what, exactly?" "Of me." Madison threw her arms out. "You've always been jealous that I'm successful, that I have a degree, that I'm going somewhere with my life. You can't stand that Mom and Dad are proud of me." "Madison, honey, maybe we should," Aunt Diane started, but Madison was on a roll now, wine and anger making her reckless. "No. I'm tired of tiptoeing around Wilma's feelings. She made her choices. She decided not to go to college. She decided to waste her potential doing manual labor. And now she wants us all to pretend like that's just as good as what I accomplished. It's not. It's not the same." The other diners weren't even pretending not to watch anymore. Our family drama was now the evening's entertainment for everyone at Cristallo's. The waiter still stood there, bill in hand, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "You think I didn't go to college because I was lazy?" I asked quietly. "Because I lacked ambition, didn't you?" "You didn't," Madison shot back. "I didn't go because we couldn't afford it," I said, the words coming out cold and clear. "Because Mom and Dad spent every penny they'd saved for my education on your private high school when you got kicked out of the public one for cheating on your finals. Remember that, Madison? Or were you too busy pretending it never happened?" Madison's face went white, then bright red. They never proved, they proved it enough that the principal gave you a choice," I cut her off. "Expulsion with it on your record, or transfer to private school with a clean slate." Mom and Dad paid $28,000 a year for 3 years so you could graduate without that hanging over you. That was my college fund. All of it. The silence that fell was absolute. Even the other diners had gone quiet, leaning in to hear what came next. Wilma, Dad said, his voice slow and dangerous. We don't discuss private family matters in public. Why not? I asked, my voice rising slightly. We're already discussing how I'm not good enough to sit at the family table. Might as well air all the dirty laundry while we're at it. Mom's face had gone pale, her carefully applied makeup standing out in stark relief. That money was spent to protect your sister's future, to give her a second chance. You should be grateful we were able to help her. Grateful? I stared at her. I worked full-time through high school to save up for community college because you told me there was no money. I ate ramen for 2 years straight. I took every overtime shift I could get, all while you were writing checks for Madison's private school and her SAT tutors and her college application consultants. You never once thought to tell me where my college fund went. I found out when I overheard you talking to Aunt Diane about what a close call it had been. You were eavesdropping, Aunt Diane said, like that was the real crime here. I was 17 and trying to figure out how I was going to pay for college. My voice cracked. Do you have any idea what it was like listening to you all celebrate Madison's acceptance to Stanford while I was filling out loan applications and getting rejected because we made too much money on paper but had nothing saved? Grandma's eyes were shining with tears. Patricia, you told me Wilma chose not to go to college. You said she wasn't academically inclined. She wasn't, Mom said defensively. Her grades were never as strong as Madison's. Because I was working 35 hours a week at 2 different jobs. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make them understand. Madison got to focus on school. She got tutors and study time and parents who made sure she had everything she needed. I got double shifts and falling asleep in class and teachers who thought I didn't care about my education. Life isn't fair, Wilma, Dad said. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. And I was the sacrifice? I looked at him. This man who taught me to ride a bike and read me bedtime stories and promised he'd always protect me. That's what you're saying? That my future was less important than Madison's? Your sister had more potential, Mom said. And there it was. The truth she probably always believed but never said out loud. She was always exceptional. You were adequate. We invested where the return would be greatest. The words landed like physical blows. Adequate. An investment with poor returns. I was standing in one of the most expensive restaurants in Chicago, and my mother had just reduced me to a failed business venture. Uncle Paul cleared his throat uncomfortably. Maybe we should take this somewhere more private. Why? I asked. So you can all tell me more quietly that I'm not worth as much as Madison? So you can explain in hushed tones why I'm good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to eat your food? You're being hysterical, Trevor said. I rounded on him. And you're being complicit. You've been with Madison for what, 2 years? Have you ever once questioned why I'm never at family events? Why I'm always the punchline of their jokes? Or did you just assume I deserved it because I'm a blue-collar worker instead of a consultant? He opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I mean, they're your family. I figured you just weren't close. We're not close because they don't want me close, I said, my voice heavy with a truth that had taken decades to fully grasp. Unless they need something from me. And tonight, they needed a checkbook. I looked at Mom. This woman who'd raised me, who braided my hair before elementary school and taught me how to ride a bike and promised that she loved all her children equally. The same woman who just told a restaurant full of people that I didn't belong at her table. I'm not paying this, I said. Don't be ridiculous. Mom hissed, glancing around to see if anyone was watching. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? Something hot and sharp rose in my chest. You invited me to dinner, told me there was no seat for me, Made me wait at the bar for 3 hours, and now you're trying to stick me with a $3,000 bill. Dad finally spoke up, his voice low and stern. Wilma and Hensley, you will lower your voice right now. No. The word came out stronger than I expected. I won't. Madison stepped forward, her face flushed with anger and too much wine. Oh my God, Wilma, can you not be selfish for once? This is my night, my graduation. The least you could do is contribute something since you didn't even get me a proper gift. I gave you a gift card, I said. To Target, she sneered. How thoughtful. It was $50 I couldn't really afford. But that wasn't the point anymore. That's not the point, Trevor added, because apparently everyone needed to pile on. Family is supposed to support each other. Your mom worked really hard to make this reservation happen. I turned to the waiter, who looked like he wanted to melt into the expensive flooring. I'm sorry for putting you in this position, but I need you to understand something very clearly. I did not agree to pay for this dinner. I was not consulted about any part of this dinner. In fact, I wasn't even allowed to eat at this dinner. Wilma, you're being dramatic, Aunt Diane said. Am I? I looked at each of them in turn. What did I eat tonight? Anyone? Can any of you tell me what I ordered? Silence. That's because I didn't order anything, I continued, my voice calm, but with an iron edge. Because there was no seat for me. Because, according to Mom, I don't belong at a table celebrating academic achievement since I didn't go to college. My grandmother finally spoke, her voice quiet but firm. Patricia, is that true? You said that to her? Mom's face flushed. Mother, you don't understand. Wilma is always so sensitive about these things. She takes everything personally. Did you say it? Grandma pressed. I may have suggested that the dinner was specifically for celebrating Madison's education. Yes. And that perhaps Wilma would be more comfortable elsewhere since she chose a different path. You said I didn't belong at the table, I corrected. Those were your exact words. The waiter cleared his throat. I really need to process payment. I closed the portfolio and handed it back to him. Then you need to take this to Mrs. Patricia Hensley, whose name is on the reservation. Because I am not paying for a meal I didn't eat, at a party I wasn't welcome to attend. Wilma. Mom's voice went shrill. You cannot do this. Watch me. I turned to walk away, and Mom grabbed my arm. Her grip was tight, her nails digging in through the fabric of my dress. If you walk out that door without paying this bill, you are no longer part of this family, she said. Her eyes were hard, glittering with anger, and something that might have been panic. I mean it. You'll be dead to me. The room seemed to hold its breath. Even the other diners had stopped pretending not to watch our drama unfold. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back up at her face. Mom, I said, my voice quiet, I stopped being part of this family the moment you told me I didn't belong at your table. I pulled my arm free and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I could hear the explosion starting. Patricia, what have you done? That was Grandma. This is your fault, Madison, predictably. Sir, I really need someone to pay this bill. The poor waiter. I didn't stop. I walked through the main dining room with my head up, past all those happy couples and families who belonged exactly where they were. James, the bartender, caught my eye as I passed and gave me a small nod of what looked like approval. The night air hit my face like a baptism. Cool and clean after the recycled atmosphere of the restaurant. I could breathe again. My hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding my system now that the moment had passed. My phone started ringing before I'd made it to the end of the block. Mom's photo flashed on the screen. I declined the call. She called again immediately. Declined again. Then text started flooding in, Mom, come back here right now. Mom, you are being completely unreasonable. Asterisk Mom, do you have any idea how much that bill is? Asterisk Dad, this is unacceptable behavior. Wilma, you just ruined my graduation dinner. You selfish, Aunt Diane, I always knew you had a mean streak. I silenced my phone and kept walking. My car was parked 3 blocks away, and I'd never been more grateful for the distance. Each step felt like peeling off a layer of something toxic I'd been carrying for too long. When I finally got home to my small apartment, the one I'd rented with my electrician's salary in a neighborhood my parents called sketchy, I collapsed on my second-hand couch and started to laugh. The sound came from somewhere deep in my chest, slightly hysterical, but also genuine. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. My phone continued buzzing, but I didn't look at it. Instead, I changed into my pajamas, made myself a cup of tea, and opened my laptop. There was an email waiting from my supervisor at work asking if I wanted to take on a side job helping wire a new construction project. Extra hours, extra pay, and exactly the kind of experience I needed to finish my apprenticeship strong. I typed back, yes, absolutely. When do we start? The next morning, I woke up to 47 missed calls and 128 text messages. Most were from my immediate family, ranging from fury to guilt-tripping to vague threats about how I'd destroyed family bonds forever. But there were a few surprises. From Grandma, I paid the bill. Your mother was wrong. Call me when you're ready. From Uncle Paul, for what it's worth, you weren't wrong tonight. Take care of yourself. And from a number I didn't immediately recognize, though the area code was local, Wilma, this is James from Cristallo's. I probably shouldn't be doing this, but one of the servers is a friend of mine and told me what happened after you left. Your mom tried to convince the manager that you'd agreed to pay and were just being dramatic. The manager reviewed the reservation notes and there was nothing about you covering the bill or even being included in the party count. They made your family pay. Your mom's credit card got declined twice before your grandmother stepped in with a check. Anyway, I got your number from the reservation system. Sorry if that's creepy. I just wanted you to know you were brave tonight. Sometimes the hardest thing is walking away from people who are supposed to love you. Take care of yourself. I sat on my kitchen floor and cried. Not sad tears, exactly. Something more complicated. A release of pressure I'd been holding in for years. Over the next few weeks, the messages from my family tapered off. Mom tried one last emotional manipulation, a long text about how she'd given me life and sacrificed so much and couldn't believe I'd humiliate her like that in public. I read it once and then blocked her number. Madison sent a final message calling me every name she could think of and declaring that I'd better not expect an invitation to her wedding. I blocked her, too. Dad never apologized, but he did send one text, your mother is very upset. You should call her. I saved his number under Do Not Answer, but didn't block it completely. Some small part of me wasn't ready to completely sever that connection, even though I never responded. The only person I stayed in contact with was Grandma. We met for coffee 2 weeks after the dinner at a small cafe near her house that served exactly the kind of simple, honest food my family would have sneered at. Your grandfather and I are changing our will, she told me over blueberry scones. Grandma, you don't have to, I started. Hush, she said. Your mother has become someone I don't recognize. I knew she could be status conscious, but what she did to you. She shook her head. You were right to walk away. I'm proud of you. Those words meant more than she could ever know. 6 months later, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Wilma Hensley, a professional woman's voice asked. Yes. This is Jennifer Park from Mackenzie's HR department. I'm calling about Madison Hensley. You're listed as a contact reference for her background check as part of our internal promotion review process. I wanted to verify some information about her character and interpersonal skills. I almost laughed. Of course, she had. Madison probably assumed I'd either forgotten about the dinner or would be too scared to say anything negative. HR calling for a promotion review made more sense than a standard reference check. They were assessing whether she was ready for more responsibility and client-facing work. I'm happy to answer your questions, I said carefully. Great. Can you speak to Madison's character, particularly regarding how she handles conflict and treats colleagues, especially those she may perceive as subordinate? I thought about lying, taking the high road, being the bigger person, all those phrases people use when they mean letting someone get away with being terrible because standing up for yourself is considered rude. I can tell you that Madison comes from a family with very clear ideas about social hierarchy, I said. In my personal experience, she's willing to participate in excluding people she views as beneath her, and she's comfortable with others paying costs she's not willing to cover herself. There was a pause. Can you elaborate on that? So I did. I told the story clinically, without emotion, just facts. The dinner. The missing seat. The bill. I didn't embellish. I didn't need to. Thank you for your honesty, Jennifer said when I finished. This is very helpful information. 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. When I opened it, I realized it was Madison. She must have gotten a new phone or was texting from someone else's device to get around my block. I didn't get the promotion. Did you say something to HR? Dad says I should sue you for slander. I typed back, everything I said was true. Good luck with the lawsuit. And blocked that number, too. Life moved forward. I finished my apprenticeship and became a licensed electrician. My supervisor offered me a permanent position with his company, with benefits and a salary that made me more financially stable than I'd ever been. I started taking on side jobs, building a reputation for quality work and fair pricing. I also started therapy. Dr. Chen's office was in a converted house with soft lighting and plants in every corner. She didn't look surprised when I told her the story of the dinner, or when I explained how my family had always made me feel like I was less than. Do you want a relationship with them? She asked during our third session. I thought about it for a long time. I want them to be different people. Does that count? No, she said gently. It doesn't. So, I worked on accepting what was instead of wishing for what could have been. It was harder than any physical labor I'd ever done. Some days I'd be fine, going about my work and my life without thinking about them at all. Other days, I'd see a mother and daughter laughing in a coffee shop and feel the loss like a fresh wound. Marcus helped. We'd met at a friend's barbecue 6 months after the dinner. He taught 8th grade history and had the kind of patience that came from dealing with teenagers all day. When I finally told him about my family, he just nodded. My dad hasn't spoken to me in 5 years because I didn't take over his business, he said. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love us unconditionally are the ones who attach the most conditions. We understood each other in a way that felt rare and valuable. The side jobs started piling up through word of mouth. I rewired a boutique hotel downtown, installed smart home systems in 3 separate McMansions, and somehow became the go-to electrician for a chain of trendy restaurants. The money was good, better than good. I started saving, actually building something that belonged to me. One evening, about a year after the dinner, I got a call from a real estate agent, a family friend, though I couldn't remember ever meeting her. Wilma, this is Susan Chen. I'm handling the sale of your grandmother's home. My blood went cold. Is Grandma okay? Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I should have led with that. She's fine. She's downsizing to a condo and asked me to reach out to you specifically. She wants to know if you'd be interested in purchasing the house. Grandma's house was a beautiful craftsman in a neighborhood that had been up and coming for the past decade. It was worth easily 4 times what I could afford. I don't think I can swing that, I admitted. She's offering you a very significant family discount, Susan said. And she mentioned something about helping with the down payment as an early inheritance. She said to tell you that some people earn their place at the table through degrees, but you earned yours through character. I bought the house. It needed some electrical work, which I did myself, and fresh paint, which I hired out. When I finally moved in, Grandma came over with a housewarming gift, a dining room table. It seats 8, she said with a knowing smile. Make sure everyone who sits at it knows they belong there. I kept working, building my business and my life. Made friends with other electricians and small business owners. Dated a teacher named Marcus who thought it was impressive that I could wire a house and never once asked why I hadn't gone to college. Built something real and solid. Mine. 2 years after the dinner, I got a message from Dad. The first communication in all that time. Your mother wants to apologize. Can we meet for coffee? I stared at the message for 3 days before responding. No, but tell her I hope Madison's doing well. He didn't push. I blocked that number, too. 5 years after the dinner, I was working on a major commercial project downtown when my phone rang. Unknown number again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. Wilma, this is Trevor. Madison's, well, ex-boyfriend now. Listen, I know this is weird, but I've been thinking about that dinner a lot lately. What happened wasn't right. I was drunk and stupid and I went along with something I knew was wrong. I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me or even respond to this. I just wanted you to know that I've thought about it a lot, and you were right about all of it. I saved the voicemail. Didn't respond, but I saved it. The truth is, I think about that dinner, too. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just paid the bill, swallowed my pride, maxed out my credit card, and played the role my family expected. Maybe we'd still have superficial holiday gatherings where everyone pretended to get along. Maybe Madison and I would exchange birthday texts that neither of us meant. Maybe Mom would occasionally brag about my little electrical business to her friends, a quirky anecdote about her unconventional daughter. But I wouldn't have this life. I wouldn't have this house with its tableware. Everyone belongs. I wouldn't have the pride of knowing I built something with my own hands and my own standards. I wouldn't have learned that walking away from people who don't value you isn't burning a bridge. It's refusing to keep building one that only goes in their direction. Last month, I got an invitation in the mail. Madison's wedding. The envelope was addressed in fancy calligraphy. Probably cost more than my whole dinner at Chipotle that night. No personal note, just a formal invitation to witness her marriage to someone named Chad at a vineyard in Napa Valley. I texted Grandma, "Did you get one of these?" She responded immediately. Yes. I told her, "I'm not attending unless you're included in the wedding party with a personal apology." She said to tell you the invitation is apology enough. I threw the invitation away. That night, I sat at my dining room table, the one that seats 8, with Marcus and 4 friends from work. We ordered pizza and played cards and laughed until my sides hurt. Nobody asked me where I went to college. Nobody suggested I didn't belong. Somewhere across town, my family was probably planning that wedding, discussing flower arrangements and seating charts and whether the chicken or the fish was more appropriate for the main course. Mom was probably calling in favors, name-dropping vendors, and making sure everything was absolutely perfect for the photographs. And I was here, in my house that I bought with money I earned, surrounded by people who valued me for who I am rather than the institutions I attended. The bill for that dinner was $2,846.30. The cost of my dignity would have been everything,